November 5th of 1605 had seen the launching of a plot to eliminate not only the English king, but his successors, his parliament, and a number of close bishops and nobility during the state opening of parliament, when all major targets would be together in one location. This was to be achieved through the igniting of several barrels of gunpowder, which over the course of weeks had been carefully smuggled underneath the House of Lords. The man tasked with the responsibility of lighting the fuse, a veteran by the name of Fawkes, had been discovered guarding the barrels of gunpowder before being arrested and executed, aborting the plot and leaving it to be remembered in infamy as the Gunpowder Treason. That's generally what most familiar with the treason know, but what if things had gone differently? To answer that, we're going to need to know more about the motives and the characters behind the plot. The best place to start is perhaps with the king, James Charles Stuart, King of Scots, succeeding Queen Elizabeth I, who died childless. Actually, Elizabeth's father, Henry VIII, might be a better place to start. See, during his early reign, England was Catholic, much like the rest of Europe at the time, but this was the era of the Reformation. People were becoming disillusioned with the Catholic Church and sought an alternative. Henry was one of those people, famously motivated by a desire to annul his marriage much against the wishes of the Pope. This led England to officially turn its back to Catholicism in favor of the newly established Church of England. Obviously, the Pope and many devout Catholics weren't happy about this and voiced their anger. Henry responded by suppressing and disbanding dissident churches and religious orders, a practice which more or less continued on with his successors, his daughter being no exception, as she famously imprisoned and executed a rival Catholic contender to the throne, Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots, mother of the boy who would one day succeed Elizabeth, James Charles Stuart. James himself, despite his mother, was not a Catholic, though he did hold sympathies to the old religion. However, this sympathy was not sufficient enough to enact the desired tolerances to religious practice much of the Catholic population demanded, leaving them to perceive him as but another continuation of the anti-Catholic establishment that had been endured for decades. Thus enters the originators of the Gunpowder Treason. The plot was orchestrated by an alliance of radicalized Catholics led by Robert Catesby, who believed the duty rested upon them to restore the religious order of England and rescue the Catholic English way of life from a gradual path toward total extinction. The plan was to wipe the board clean of the establishment who was seen as too deeply invested in the Church of England, and restore the old order through the ascension of James's younger daughter Elizabeth to be raised Catholic, while Henry Percy of Northumberland would serve as her regent until she came of age, essentially appointing Percy to the role of leader of England for a time. James's younger son, already known to be a devout Protestant, was to be captured and exiled or imprisoned to prevent the resurgence of a non-Catholic heir. Because of disagreements within the circle of conspirators and the expansion of the group to include less zealous supporters, information of the plot eventually leaked out to King James, warning him not to attend the opening session of Parliament. And it was because of this that he ordered the extra security patrols which eventually discovered Fawkes. In this alternate world, that letter is never read by King James. There were numerous opportunities for it to have been intercepted, destroyed, lost, and simply ignored by the king. In this timeline, that's precisely what happens. On November 5th, Fawkes lights the fuse and escapes on horseback, crossing the River Thames while revolts in the Midlands distract from the conspirators capturing the king's son and daughter. Fawkes is tasked with informing the papacy and international Catholic powers of the events unfolding to earn their cause legitimacy, while domestically the conspirators reassert order through the mechanisms of government, granting Henry Percy authority, as well as through the direct support of the Catholic population. Catholicism is restored to England, and history becomes far unlike that of our world. With King James and essentially his entire order wiped out, so goes all that he would have set in motion, and just so happens that would include the significant plantation of Northern Ireland and the colonization of the Americas. It was under James that the region of Ireland known as Ulster began seeing settlement by British citizens, setting in motion the demographic shift that would drive Ireland time and time again to rebel and revolt against the Protestant English. In this world, no such movement is pushed forward, except for the territories already settled by independent individuals and organizations. Without protection from the king and English government, the Catholic Irish would see to the driving out of these settlers and reasserting dominance over the island. This world never sees the Angloization of Ulster, leaving it a great hub of Gaelic culture, though this of course means development comes much more slowly, and the whole of the island remains agrarian for the time being. Jamestown, named so after King James, is never established as the first permanent English colony in America. And with the government in the midst of a reformation, as well as picking up the scraps of political machinery, colonization may not become a major priority for some time. Additionally, James was instrumental in the pursuit of a deeper union between the realms of the British Isles. Without him laying the foundations for unity, England, Scotland, and Ireland likely remained divided lands for a longer stretch of time, and in that time developed diverging identities. Scotland likely pursuing allegiance with France to further support its own ambitions of colonization in the region of the Carolinas, While in Ireland, independent advancement and the survival of Gaelic culture ensures the region remains distinct enough from England to avert any willing attempts at union. England is forced into a defensive position. There were many competitors abroad who would have liked to take advantage of this momentary disorder, and England's best course of action would be to temporarily withdraw itself to regain its footing, then afterwards establish close ties with a friendly Catholic power, perhaps restoring relations with Spain to benefit from their significant trade empire, which would fare better in this world, though likely still collapse save for some additional colonies in Central America. In absence of England and the British Empire, the Dutch trade empire rises to fill the role, occupying the territory of New York as New Amsterdam, as well as securing the Cape Colony and large coastal ports along India. England in the years following the political shift and the ascension of Elizabeth would adopt a more absolutist monarchy, akin to what was seen in other Catholic kingdoms, and while more power is invested into the monarch, this new order may actually serve to briefly avert the English Civil War, which had been triggered by King James's son, an overbearing and reckless leader who tended to stretch the limits of his power, although that's not to say the English Civil War would be averted entirely. Populations will tend to follow an absolute monarch so long as they're at the very least capable of bringing a fair amount of prosperity. As the saying goes, no one will rebel if it's more comfortable not to do so. However, if Elizabeth's successor succumbs to the same pitfalls of James's successor, then disaster is likely to re-emerge for the nation, soon stoking the intervention of a neighboring Catholic power such as France, who may seize upon the opportunity to make of England a protectorate or dominion for the sake of maintaining order, likely doing so with the support of allied Scotland, and as Spain's power wanes, so will the two be set up to assume the new role of chief European power and trade captains, existing in regular rivalry with the Dutch trade empire. Overall, in an attempt to restore Catholic authority to England, the conspirators of the Gunpowder Plot would have inadvertently set England back at a time which would have been its most crucial steps toward achieving the status of an international empire, and in that time allowed others to fill the spaces it had left behind. By the time England would have had the chance to catch up, it may well have been far too late. If we were to assume the succession line following Elizabeth maintained dominant authority without triggering a revolution or civil war, England would still find itself surrounded by competitors, rivals, and enemies, be it the Dutch, the Irish, the Scots, or the French. And though it may still carve out a new path for itself, regardless of where and how that might be, there's no escaping the fact that it would be a significant reduction of the potential it once held. And that is where I'll end this video for now. The US of Z thanks you for watching. Support your Legion by liking the video, or join our ranks by subscribing for more. Mr. Z, out.